She's asking the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of California to investigate if a criminal contempt proceeding against the company is appropriate.
Now, for any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Ntsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Our sports news up next with Msibudi Makura.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa. The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
Just the other day, I went to pick up my daughter from school, and as per usual, her friends don't usually come to my car just to say hellos and goodbyes. So this particular day, they made this comment about my jacket, saying that it's giving baddie vibes. You say my jacket is giving what?
It's giving baddie vibes.
Baddie vibes?
Baddie!
It got me thinking, where did the baddies come from? Because nothing is new under the sun, as it is said. I was like, oh yes, remember the Kenyan parliamentarian? Her name is Millie Odhiambo.
When you are urging me to be a good example to the girls, the younger ones who are doing their first term, Mr. Speaker, if they are good girls, they'll never get corner office. Be as bad as Millie Odhiambo, you will be the mother of this house. So do not be cheated like the African culture, where you are told have decorum, be nice. I'm telling you, you will go nowhere. Be a bad girl like me.
And I thought to myself, that is the original baddie.
Saturday and Sunday mornings belong to the Morning Switch. 3 to 6 a.m. Central African Time. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It's 12:07 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 4069126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Thousands of people rallied in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, on Wednesday in support of the military junta after an alleged coup attempt and comments by an American official criticizing junta leader Ibrahim Traoré. Last week, the West African country's military government said it foiled a major plot to overthrow junta leader Captain Ibrahim Traoré, with the army alleging the plotters were based in neighboring Ivory Coast. And for more on these developments, Channel Africa's news correspondent in Burkina Faso, Eduardo Sambo, joins us on the line. Eduardo, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon.
Now, there seems to be a lot going on in the background in Burkina Faso. Last month, General Michael Langley, the head of the U.S. military in Africa, accused Traoré during a U.S. Senate committee hearing of using Burkina Faso's gold reserves to benefit the junta at the expense of the population. How did Traoré's government respond to these accusations?
Yes, after the accusation of General Langley about Burkina Faso, the authorities of Burkina Faso respond him saying that Burkina Faso is fighting for its freedom. And they also told to Langley that he doesn't know the history. Because of what happened in Burkina Faso, if General Langley knows what happened in Burkina Faso, normally he would have not said this. And the authority said that what the authority of United States and General Langley need to know is that the way of Burkina Faso authority today is to defend Burkina Faso interests and to protect Burkina Faso citizens and to free the country and to protect their mineral resources. And they also say that United Nations and General Longley are not have what they are saying the truth of humanity. According to the history, the army of United States used their power to dominate many countries. And Burkina Faso used his natural resources and his forces to protect his national citizen and national freedom. And the right of this way, they say to Lenglet that he have to respect Burkina Faso nation and the will of Burkina Faso people, who is independence, freedom, and Pan-Africanism way. After that, the Prime Minister of Burkina Faso said that it is very important for those who is like General Lenglet to know that today is not old days. Today is the day where people of Africa are stand up to protect their own interests and to show those who are now considered like imperialism and they are allowed to dominate people. They will not, Burkina Faso people will not accept those who are going to dominate them and those who are going to influence them. And when they are using their own resources, is for the interest of people or not interest for elitists. So that's what he said, and that's what the response.
Now, Eduardo, the crowds of protesters gathering at the Place de la Révolution in Ouagadougou, chanting "Long live Captain Traoré." What has sparked a strong show of support for the transitional leader?
For the protesters, the first thing to show to all of the world is that people are standing to protect their independence. That is what the first word. The second word is what to say that to Ibrahim Traoré is not the leader of the junta. It is also the leader of the people. And they wanted to show at the third position that today people are ready to protect their leader that they have chosen. And they said that they were also, they wanted to warn those who are supporting imperialism, those who are supporting COP, and those who are trying to destabilize Burkina Faso and destroy Burkina Faso. They wanted to tell that they will protect their leaders and they will protect their own countries. And when they were at the place of revolution press, they said that if you are coming from Burkina Faso and you are coming from outside of Burkina Faso and you don't respect Burkina Faso will, they will not allow you to destroy their country, so they will respond. Now, according to the manifestation, they show that people are mobilized. People are, that was the whole crowd. People will be mobilized to protect their own country, to protect their leaders, and they will not accept, because they said also that when Burkina Faso was facing to terrorism, and when they were looking for weapons, when they were looking for protection and support to fight against terrorism, there was no support coming from another country. And today they are there many years ago standing to fight against terrorism. There are some are coming outside like using imperialism word to deter people, so they will not accept. And there was also a warning for those who are organizing coup to destroy Burkina Faso leader that if they continue organizing coup, they will not accept and they will respond. That was a message for those coming from Burkina Faso and those and are influenced by imperialism will.
Yeah. Now, what is the feeling, the general feeling of Burkinabe on Traoré's leadership? Just bearing in mind that human rights groups in the country have accused armed forces and militia of committing widespread abuses during counterinsurgency operations. These include unlawful killings of civilians, accused of supporting Islamist fighters, yet thousands descended in the capital in support of Traoré. What's the feeling on the ground, especially with the citizens?
The majority of the citizens say that Burkina Faso have experienced all kinds of government. They have experienced democracy government. They are experienced another coup, military coup, a military junta. And today they have another leader, and this leader is showing his integrity, and he have the will to protect the country. And the army is supporting him, and the army want to deliver the country. That's what people think. They say that according to this will of the authority, if there are some people who want to to sustain Burkina Faso, they have to bring their knowledge, their support, and all the things that Burkina Faso can deliver from terrorism, not those who are criticizing and not who are organizing camp to destroy. They say that there is no best leader. There is no best leader, but people are able to make a good leader. They say that if today the junta guided by Ibrahim Traore is not the perfect one, but is supported and is oriented by people, it means that they can do many things. So the call for those who are not agree with what doing Ibrahim Traore, they can bring their knowledge, they can bring their advice, they can bring what they think that is good to support Burkina Faso and to orient it, not to be outside and criticize every time. Because of what? Because of that Western people in Burkina Faso know themselves many years ago.
Now, with the reports of a foiled coup attempt that took place last week, do we know the exact details of the people involved in this plot and what has led to, that has basically led to the heightened security in the country? And who are these people now trying to challenge Traore, who seems to have a lot of support from the Burkinabe?
Yes, according to the coup, according to the authorities said, it is among those who are organized the coup, there are foreign people. And there are also those who are in Burkina Faso today. And they are organized to destroy because of, they say that they don't want junta who is guiding Burkina Faso. So for people, this is not acceptable because of the situation, the actual situation of Burkina Faso is facing terrorism. It is very important not to organize another COP because Burkina Faso are also experiencing many COP. They say that it is right. Burkina Faso is in the junta, but now instead of organizing another COP to establish another junta, it is better for people to come and to support and to orient it and to guide. And when people understand that there are military from Burkina Faso and foreign people who are supporting the COP, they are not accepting. It is why, because they say that there are many people who is now established in Cote d'Ivoire, and another country who are organizing the COP, and it is these people are not accepting. People are not accepting the COP. And they say that every time organized COP is not good. What they today is to support this COP, to support Ibrahim Traore, and to support alliance, and to help people to protect the country first, to deliver people first, and to organize a civil transition. The first thing is to organize another COP and to bring someone who will be considered like imperialism leader, who will come to continue exploiting people, who will come to not defend people, but will come on the name of the democracy to organize the people exploitation.
Well, Eduardo, we will leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update. And before I let you go, today is International Workers' Day. What's your take? What's happening on the ground in Burkina Faso with regards to this global holiday?
People organizing parties. People are sharing good food. People are happy. They are hopeful. They hope that today Burkina Faso is facing a war, but there is a hope for a new future. There is a hope for independence. There is a hope for African Union. There is a hope for Pan-African. There is a hope for those who believe in Burkina Faso and believe in Burkina Faso leadership that one day we will be in peace. We will live in peace. We will eat in peace, and we will not be independent. We will not be dependent, but we will be independent and live on our own resources, and will have our own story and not be influenced by anyone. That's what people are thinking and are sharing today.
Well, Eduardo, thank you for that, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you.
That is our news correspondent in Burkina Faso, Eduardo Sambo, joining us on the line. It is 12:19 Central African Time.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 20 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Al Sudan's Army Chief Abdel Fattah Burhan has appointed Dafala Al-Haj Ali as acting Prime Minister and Omar Sadiq as Foreign Minister following the military's recent recapture of much of Khartoum from the Rapid Support Forces. The RSF remains entrenched in parts of Western Sudan despite the army regaining control of the capital after 2 years of conflict. Now, to speak to us further about this, we are joined on the line by our correspondent in South Sudan, that's Duku Wilson. Duku, good afternoon and happy Workers' Day.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you, Lulu. It is a pleasure to connect with Channel Africa once more.
Now, Duku, what is the public reaction in Khartoum and other cities to the appointment of Dafala Al-Haj Ali as acting Prime Minister?
Well, thank you for this question. Yes, just like myself also, yesterday the Sovereign Council released a statement appointing veteran diplomat Dafala Al-Haj as the country's acting prime minister, and also Omar Sadiq as the foreign minister. Well, you know, the appointment signals a new phase in Sudan's transitional government, as Burhan, who chairs the country's transitional sovereign council, is the person that is in charge of the decisions of who to appoint and who not to. The moves came just weeks after the Sudanese military successfully expelled the paramilitary rapid support forces from most of Khartoum area. Of course, you know, this is just signaling like the Sudan armed forces under Al Burhan, they just want to push it as a military government instead of the civilian, because according to the agreement that they signed, there's part of civilian agreement and that one of the RSF. So it's like the leadership of Burhan wants to consolidate power just to be a military government.
And just the significance of the military's control over Khartoum in shifting the balance of power in Sudan. Just talk to us about that and what it means going forward also. And yeah, just unpack that.
Well, you know, this appointment as prime minister and foreign minister is a significant political shift in Sudan, where the military has moved to consolidate power, as I said earlier on. But then, you know, the appointment of these two gentlemen remains very important according to the statement that was released yesterday. So this one definitely it is going to be something that very critical. Of course, it is raising a lot of questions about the future of Sudan's transitional process and the prospects for lasting peace.
Now, has the RSF responded to the army's recapture of Khartoum or the recent government appointments?
Well, the RSF has not responded, although there are still some kind of skirmishes because they are still around Khartoum. And of course, they are still maybe trying to mobilize and maybe make another launch, maybe to take over again Khartoum, possibly.
And what are the current humanitarian conditions in areas still under the RSF control, especially in Western Sudan? What's happening on that part?
Well, the situation in Sudan generally remains dire, with millions displaced and several facing humanitarian challenges. The conflict, of course, it has resulted in widespread destruction, collapse of healthcare system, and acute shortages of essential supplies. The international community continues to call for a ceasefire and impeded humanitarian access to those in need.
And Duku, before we wrap up, is there any indication that these political moves are part of a broader peace or transitional plan in terms of governance in the country?
Well, just like I said, this situation is really raising questions about the future of Sudan's transitional process and the prospects for peace, for lasting peace in Sudan. Because it is as if the military government under El Burhan wants to consolidate power, and this one definitely, with the appointment of Dafala and Sadiq, definitely this one means that they want to now make a diplomatic arrangement with the international community, pushing away the RSF.
Well, Duku, always a pleasure chatting to you, and thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
You are welcome. Thank you so much.
That is our correspondent in South Sudan, Duku Wilson, joining us on the line. It is 26 after 12 Central African Time.
Have you been struggling to find Channel Africa?
Oh yes, where can I find you guys?
Well, you are in luck.
Warning, radioactive zone detected.
Listen to the African perspective on our brand new SABC Plus app. Download the fresh and easy to use app from sabcplus.com or the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Or just command your phone to find SABC Plus on your phone and check out all this good stuff. And that's where you will find Channel Africa, the African perspective. Oh yes, this is fresh and easy. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:27 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, every year on the 1st of May, South Africa stands still to honor the spirit of its working class men and women. This day is also celebrated globally as International Workers' Day or May Day. It is a public holiday that pays tribute to the historical struggles of workers and their trade unions for solidarity and fair employment standards. Now, the Foundation for Rights of Expression and Equality organization Free SA says it will not stand with the elites in regalia or the podiums heavy with empty slogans to celebrate the day, but rather stand with the 12.2 million South Africans who want to work but cannot get work. And not because they lack will or skill, but because they have been shut out of an economy that has stopped growing. And to talk to us further about this, we are joined on the line by Ruben Gutzer, the spokesperson of Free SA. Ruben, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update, and happy Workers' Day.
Good afternoon, Lulu, and thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you guys today.
Now, Ruben, your organization Free SA stating that you will not stand in podiums or on podiums with the elite, but rather with the masses of South Africans who lack work. Tell us more about this.
Yes, so as you mentioned, Lulu, Workers' Day is meant to really honor the dignity of labor and the rights of workers for many South Africans who have struggled to find work and who have had to really fight for the rights of workers and ensure that we really take care of our workers in this country. But that really rings hollow now today for many South African workers, like you mentioned, who want jobs but who cannot find jobs because the economy has stopped growing. Like you mentioned, we have 12.2 million South Africans out of work who would want to work but who don't have the opportunity to find jobs because the economy is just not growing. When we look at the economic growth of the country in the last couple of years, we see that in both 2023 and 2024, the South African economy has only grown by 0.5%. 0.6%, and that is by no means an effective growth rate to ensure that the millions of South Africans that are out of work can find work. And I think for us at Free SA, that's why we are taking this position, is that we cannot celebrate Workers' Day when we have so many South Africans who are out of work, who cannot provide for their families, who cannot pursue a better future for themselves, not because of their own faults, not because of their own abilities, but because of a government and a state that has really not prioritized growing the economy to ensure that there is adequate jobs for them. And that is really our viewpoint, is that the current course that we are on is not a sustainable course, and that we should really chart a new course in terms of our economic objectives to ensure that we can really allow these South Africans who want to work and have got the ability to work to also have the opportunities to chart a better future for themselves.
Now, Ruben, government says in its stats that unemployment is on a downward trajectory currently. Now, do you not think that this is worth celebrating on a day like this?
I think, of course, if there's a downward spiral, it is positive, but I think it's really marginal. It's not effective um, downward growth of unemployment that we need. It doesn't speak to the amount of South Africans that are out of work. Like I mentioned, if we look at the broad unemployment rate in South Africa, it's 42%, and a percentage point down or 2 percentage points down a year is not something that is effective. We need drastic, radical changes that can really stimulate economic growth in the long run, and that can create sustainable, long-term and exponential economic growth. Because only once we expand the economy exponentially and we ensure that we expand the various industries and sectors that stimulate the South African economy, only then I think we can have something to celebrate. So it might be optimistic to hear that the government says that there is a decline in unemployment here and there. But if you have a 42% unemployment, which is one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, even in Africa, when you measure it against a lot of African countries, we are also one of the highest countries with the highest unemployment rates. So I think small gains is not something that we need at this point. We need drastic change, and we need to put measures in place to ensure that we can achieve a drastic decline in the unemployment rate. Because if almost half of your country is unemployed, then like I mentioned, 1 or 2% decline a year is not really effective for the majority of the population.
Now, the basic education, rather the basic conditions of employment, of the Employment Act and National Minimum Wage Act have been pivotal in improving workers' conditions. How does Free SA view the implementation and impact of these laws, and what challenges persist and hinder advancement, despite legislative challenges? And just take us through that and what you think needs to be done to improve on some of these laws.
So I think, let me touch on the laws first things first, and then I'll get into some of the suggestions that we have as to how we can improve economic growth and stimulate a long-term economic growth in our country to ensure that we create adequate amount of jobs for South Africans. So firstly, by looking at the Minimum Wage Act, as Free SA, we stand with workers, and we recognize that the minimum wage bill is something that is important in really protecting the rights of workers and ensuring that workers are respected and taken care of. But it is a policy that really, from the government's perspective, is more an ideological policy trying to score political points rather than actually trying to benefit the economy. Because a minimum wage act is something that's very effective in economies where there's regular economic growth, where there's a stable job market, where the markets generally are stable as well. But in countries that have high unemployment rates, like our own country, if you look at all the economists and the experts' perspective on that, it is quite a problematic bill because it raises the costs of labor, especially in low skill sectors. And then we see that employers often turn to the informal sector for employment rather than using the formal sector. That they would rather reduce job opportunities and hire fewer people because they have these minimum requirements that they need to pay in terms of wages. And that would mean that they'd rather employ less people to comply with those requirements rather than employing a larger block of South Africans. And gradually, as the business grows and they expand and they go into further industries, then to increase the wages. It's really barrier for a lot of businesses, especially small and medium enterprises who are really run by entrepreneurs. With not necessarily the capital to sustain that as well, and particularly the fact that they have to reduce jobs to meet these minimum wage requirements. It really means that it's especially the youth and the unskilled labor in our country who are affected the most by this. But some of our suggestions at Free SA to really ensure that we can, because like I mentioned, we have a lot of unemployment, but to stifle unemployment and to address the high unemployment rate in South Africa, we first have to grow the economy. We first have to expand the economy to create more opportunities for South Africans to partake in the economy. Because, like I mentioned at the start of the interview, we only had 0.6% economic growth in the last 2 years, respectively, and that's not effective to address a 42% expanded unemployment rate. So some of our suggestions would be to create jobs, would be to trim the public service by building a capable state and not a patronage machine for the privileged few. Recently, at the start of the year, we sent a proposal through to the government that suggested trimming the cabinet, the executive, from 78 members to 30 members, because we see that there's a lot of overlapping ministerial positions, a lot of departments that can be consolidated into one department. And if you follow that proposal that we've set out, you can save roughly 130 billion rand, which can then be invested into the South African economy. And furthermore, we would also recommend that we stop with the bailouts of state-owned enterprises and rather focus on pursuing public-private partnerships in terms of state-owned enterprises to ensure efficiency and better service delivery. When we look over the last 10 years, we've spent 520 billion rand on bailing out state-owned enterprises with no real return on investment or improvements of the service delivery of these state-owned enterprises. And that's really an aspect where we can save a lot of money, utilize that money to invest in the economy, invest in creating opportunities for South Africans, rather than throwing taxpayers' money at state-owned enterprises, which really show no progress at the moment. And then furthermore, we'd also suggest privatizing our railways and harbors, which are economic veins of our country, and unblock infrastructure investment by fast-tracking projects through private-public partnership without the regulatory red tape, and also reducing the overregulation on our economy, especially the regulations that block young entrepreneurs from accessing the economy, which is really a vital aspect in how we can create jobs in our country.
And just in wrapping up, Ruben, with technology reshaping industries, what steps should be taken to ensure workers are upskilled and protected in the digital economy and the world of artificial intelligence?
Absolutely, that's a vital aspect, and that's something where there's not really a lot of regulation from the government at the moment, and that's really our point of view, is that the government should allow the private sector to create jobs, to do what they do best, unleash the shackles, and really stop trying to centralize all the power and all the functions at government, but allow the private sector to do what they do best. And then from a government perspective, to put in the regulations in place that protects businesses, that protects workers, and that ensures that we are really moving into the 21st century, into the fourth industrial revolution, and that we are really able to deal with the challenges that comes our way. But that's where it's important to understand what the role of government is and what the role of the private sector is, because the private sector are the ones that stimulate jobs, that grow the economy, and they should really be allowed to do that, but with the proper oversight from government. And that's really our belief. And I think moving into the fourth industrial revolution, possibly the fifth industrial revolution, there's a lot of opportunities as well that we should really be alert to as South Africans, both in the business sector and government, to take a hold of those opportunities to ensure that we can really turn around this dire situation in terms of our unemployment rate.
Well, Ruben, thank you for joining us on Africa Update today. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you so much.
That's Ruben Kotzer, the spokesperson of Free SA, a foundation for rights of expression and equality, joining us on the line.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:39 Central African time, and we're coming to you live on from Johannesburg in South Africa. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126. Hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Nigeria and Britain have established a joint security team to combat cybercrime and internet fraud, which has in recent times assumed a frightening in the West African country. Speaking at the launch of the initiative in Abuja, the British Minister for Affairs says the collaboration would help to increase investment confidence in both countries and safeguard invested funds from internet criminals. Our Channel Africa's news correspondent in Nigeria, Collins Nusa Atohengbe, has more.
Right from the beginning of this week, Nigerian security agencies have had their hands full of reports of activities of syndicates which kidnap youths and force them into cybercrime and internet fraud. Some of the reports that have been successfully dealt with include the arrests and repatriation of about 230 Nigerian youths who were trafficked to Accra, Ghana with promises of employment but were forced to get involved in criminal activities on the internet by a yet-to-be-identified cybercrime syndicate. Speaking during the launch of Joint Case Team, the Inspector General of the Nigerian Police Force, Kayode Egbetokun, said the setting up of the joint team will help to strengthen the already existing collaboration between Abuja and London in crime prevention.
The collaboration between the Nigerian Police Force and the National Crime Agency continues to serve as a model in international law enforcement cooperation, and we are proud of what we have been able to achieve together. We have successfully conducted joint operations into many cases of cyber crimes and online fraud. And with your cooperation, we have continued to bust other criminal networks around the world. We are also looking at the possibility of establishing a fellowship exchange program with the National Crime Agency to build long-term capacity for our officers.
The Attorney General and Minister for Justice for Nigeria, Lateef Fagbemi, says the joint crime case was made possible through the enactment of laws guiding the relationship between Nigeria and Britain in crime prevention. Fagbemi said it will serve the need of both countries in a coordinated crime prevention move, which they have agreed to.
The Joint Case Team on Cyber Crimes was backed in response to the need for a coordinated and robust approach to fighting crimes as contemplated in the Cyber Crimes Prohibition Prevention Act 2015 as amended.
The British Minister for Home Affairs, Lord David Hanson, expressed joy that there is opportunity now to safeguard the much needed funds by both nations for economic growth and the fact that investors' confidence will be restored and protected against internet fraudsters. Lord Hanson admitted that even the United Kingdom is equally affected by the activities of cyber criminals like any other nations, and the joint case team will avail much.
We know from our own dealings with fraud and with cybercrime that cybercrime and fraud are major drags on growth in the economy, on confidence in people in the economy. And this initiative today, therefore, is very welcome, both to support the development of tackling crime, but also to encourage, through that tackling crime, growth and investment in Nigeria and cooperation with the United Kingdom as a whole.
Nigeria has arrested about 900 internet fraudsters who have defrauded unsuspecting Nigerians and foreigners alike of over 1 trillion naira collectively in the past 4 months. As Abuja was busy trying to deal with the case of 84 Congolese trafficked by a cross-border human trafficking syndicate, the military in Benin City, South Nigeria, successfully rescued another 23 youths who were kidnapped and locked up in a house by an internet fraudster for over 2 years to commit cybercrime for for him. The Nigerian authorities have begun investigation that could lead to identifying trans-border human and cybercrime syndicates who are recruiting African youths for the purpose of criminal activities across West and Central Africa regions. From Lagos, I am Collins Nosa Atohengbe for Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
Channel Africa, proudly broadcasting Africa to the world. This month, we are turning up the volume as we celebrate our 59th birthday.
Happy birthday, Channel Africa.
Happy birthday to you.
From sunrise to sunset, we are bringing you the voices and that vibrant spirit of Africa. Celebrate with us all month long because Africa's story is a story worth telling. We are Channel Africa. Find us on the SABC Plus app, DSTV Audio Bouquet 802, and satellite channel PAS 10. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Connecting Africa to the world. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:45 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The director of the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation and co-director at the Institute for Global Affairs, Professor Spamandla Zondi, has called the recently concluded two-day T20 high-level dialogue a success marked by meaningful discussions focused on the most pressing issues. Speaking to Channel Africa on Wednesday, Zondi says that there has been a strong effort to build consensus among African thought leaders on key areas of intervention ranging from financing, health and food security, trade and investment, among other things. Our Channel Africa's reporter, Michael Mbewe, has a story.
The dialogue brought together a distinguished gathering of African policymakers, leading think tanks, academics and international experts to engage in critical and forward-looking conversations on the continent's evolving role in global governance, offering timely and strategic platform to reflect on Africa's priorities and articulate a shared vision for the future as South Africa hosts the G20 Summit 2025. The director of the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation and co-director at Institute for Global Affairs, Professor Spamandla Zondi, elaborates.
It has been a successful conference so far on the basis that the conversations have gone on and the conversation has focused on the most critical issues with developing consensus among African thinkers about what are the critical areas of interventions in relation to many critical issues, from financing to development to the implementation of the SDGs, to health security, to food security, to how we improve trade and investment and how we improve financing, innovative financing for climate change, and how we push a green initiative in a manner that is sustainable and that is just.
He says South Africa's involvement of other African nations is a positive sign of expanding the African agenda.
It does send a positive signal that South Africa realizes that it cannot do this alone. And this cannot just be about South Africa. Because South Africa cannot be an island of prosperity in a sea of poverty. And that South Africa's own progress is inextricably linked to the progress of Africa. And it is wonderful that South Africa recognizes that, as it has done since 1994, and has put together this G20 year in a manner that makes sure that Africa is central to all of this. And we in the T20 are also following the suit, and that helps us to advance the agenda, expand the agenda, and be more inclusive in what is to be done, because the problems are broadly shared by the whole of Africa, and this is an opportunity to do that. It can only send positive signals about how South Africa sees itself and how South Africa sees its role in the world, and that it sees itself as an agent of a broader African agenda.
The Principal Program Officer at African Science, Technology and Innovation Indicators, an organ of the African Union Development Agency, Lukovi Seki, says through South Africa's G20 presidency, Africa has an agenda to build an Africa we all want.
For us as Africa, we have number one an agenda. By 2063, where we need to go, the Africa we want. And then we have to praise even South Africa because of the G20 presidency now. And even when the South Africa got the chair at the African Commission with Dr. Zuma, Excellency. So she's the one who did pioneer this Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. And for that, for us to achieve the goal we have in Agenda 2063, we have various strategies that we call frameworks. We are avoiding to call them policies because we cannot impose our member state to do what we have there because they are sovereign. We have to accept we provide guidance. So the African Union Commission will provide policies and the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD, where I'm coming from, will support country to implement that and to connect the implementation.
More Blessings Chidawushe, Regional Advocacy Manager at WaterAid, says the G20 summit being held in African soil provides opportunities for Africa to have one voice.
The good thing is that the G20 is being held in an African country, and this gives us the opportunity. The issue is to say, how best do we harness a collective, unified, strong African voice to go to the G20 and say, as Africa, this is our agenda, and as Africa, this is what we want.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 12:51 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The Week for Palestine, a global campaign, held a press conference on Wednesday at the Constitutional Hill in Johannesburg, South Africa, where they announced the global launch as well as themes various countries will be focused on to highlight the ongoing genocide in Gaza. The annual initiative brings together activists, organizations, and communities across the world under the impactful 2025 theme, Red Card Israel, advocating for the suspension of Israeli teams from FIFA in solidarity with the Palestinian people's quest for justice, equality, and liberation. And we are now joined on the line by the National Coordinator, Mishia Moncho. Mishia, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the invite.
Now, Mishia, could you share the origins of the Week for Palestine campaign and its evolution over the years?
The Week for thanks for the question. The Week for Palestine is in its second annual campaign, because what we do as Week for Palestine is a global campaign where we try to bring like-minded organizations to form that solidarity network where we have campaigns in May for Palestine. The first week of May, together with Africa Celebrations, together with Workers International. That's where the Week for Palestine emanates from. In the past, it used to be called Israeli Apartheid Week, right? Now we've just branched out into the African continent where we're trying to mobilize and garner more and grow the network for solidarity with the people of Palestine.
Now, can you unpack this year's theme when it talks through just looking at the number of endorsements in terms of organizations that you have across the African continent? I mean, we're talking, apart from South Africa, countries like Kenya, Eswatini, even in Europe, the Netherlands, Canada, USA, Malawi, Zambia.
Canada.
Talk to us about the theme and how it translates within all these countries.
Yes, the theme emanates from the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, where one of the pillars was there can't be no normal sport in an abnormal society, right? And then we saw it fit as a campaign that in our second annual global campaign, right, because we launched it last year, let us have a red card to Israel. It's informed by the anti-apartheid movement of South Africa when they went abroad to mobilize international community to isolate all the sporting codes in South Africa because of its apartheid policies. So here, this is the idea. This is what we are trying to do to the international community. So that the earliest, the closest that we thought of is like we are approaching the FIFA World Cup in 2026. Why not start now to have Israeli isolated or banned from the 2026 Soccer World Cup? Yes, that's hence we adopted that theme.
Now, with the
Informed, of
response
course,
from
by
the
the-
global community to Week for Palestine, what does this solidarity mean for the Palestinian cause itself?
Solidarity for the Palestinian cause means that we are having more voices across the globe that are able to speak up for Palestine, where governments are failing. I'll make an example. Solidarity means when the war broke out in the 7th of October, 2023 in Israel, communities across South Africa, right, civil society, political churches, all mobilized, marched for the people of Palestine. And that prompted our government to then have this case at the ICJ. That was because of the solidarity that was shown. And I believe that if we are all together, if the solidarity movements all come together for Palestine, we have a bigger voice, right? And we're able to make a bigger impact. And then more people are able to listen. The reach is out. It's bigger. We've got a bigger reach of people who are able to listen and are able to take proper decisions for the people of Palestine. Yes, that's
how
what I
does
think
the
solidarity
campaign
is.
incorporate educational initiatives to inform the public about the Palestinian struggle? Because you find questions where people ask, why is South Africa leading this? Why is South Africa getting involved? Just the educational side for people to have a better understanding and some sort of empathy going forward.
Yes. Now, this is where education comes in. In this campaign, as much as we are red cutting Israel, it's important that in the week activities that we are having, in the week-long activities that we are having, we have educational programs, we have awareness raising, because we need to debunk the myth, right? We need to debunk the myth that says the issue of Palestine and Israel started long before even the Bible was written. It's a religious issue. It's got nothing to do with religion. What's taking place there is an apartheid system. People are being oppressed. Human rights are being violated. And that's where we come in to educate people, so that people must have more knowledge, more awareness on the issue of Palestine and what Palestinians are going through. Because as a South African myself, albeit I was born in the mid-80s towards the end of apartheid, I have stories, uncles, aunts, my mother went through it. It told me about it. So it's my duty and responsibility that I also lend a helping hand once I've learned, because I managed to get the truth about our apartheid system in South Africa and the solidarity movement against the apartheid system, right? So I learned that, and I know those who stood with South Africans in our times of need. So it's only fair that, like Nelson Mandela would say, our freedom is not complete until Palestinians are liberated and are free.
Mishia, I wish we could go on, but we have run out of time and we are going to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
And that is the Week for Palestine National Coordinator Mishia Moncho joining us on the line. Well, it is that time where we say good afternoon to the Upside team and find out what's coming up on this Workers' Day, May Day. Hello.
May Day. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. And how are you?
Fantastic. So we get into conversation with an artist, creative entrepreneur, illustrator, and designer by the name of Umlungu. Umlungu.
Okay.
What does it mean to be white in post-apartheid South Africa? Mm-hmm. Through her work, she confronts deeply, identity crisis, racial lines in South Africa. She uses her work to sort of combat that and say, listen, we are human beings after all, and we don't need to be divided as we are in the current states that we live in. And then we get into a conversation with paramedics. We see the sirens and we see them attending to us. They are the first responders, but what does all of this mean to them? Their mental well-being, the trauma that they experience on a daily basis, how do they handle it, and some of the challenges that they go through on a daily basis. We try to understand the human being behind these first responders. That's all coming up this afternoon.
That's coming up at the top of the hour on The Upside with Tebogo Kuleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. For myself, Lulu Gaboo and the Africa Update team, have an awesome May Day. And, there are people who are working. And I think this topic that's coming up on paramedics on The Upside is going to be a very interesting one, especially when you think first responders, they all see the hecticness of things going wrong. So that's where we leave it. We'll be back tomorrow, and continue with us on our socials. Bye-bye.
SABC News.